I weighed 400 pounds and was ready to give up until one phone call changed my life forever. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I looked down at my swollen feet, barely visible because of my prominent belly. The mattress sagged under my weight, groaning with every movement. It was Tuesday, 3 in the afternoon, and I should have been working. But for months, I haven't been able to leave the house without feeling the judgmental stares, the whispers, the muffled laughter. My name is Thomas. I'm 38 years old, and this was my reality. The journey to 400 pounds didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual accumulation of bad choices, unresolved trauma, and a downward spiral that seemed never-ending. I began gaining serious weight after losing my job as a sales manager 5 years ago. The layoff was devastating. Suddenly, the routine that had kept me minimally active disappeared. Days became an endless succession of empty hours, filled only with television and food. At first, it was just a few extra pounds. No big deal, I thought. After a few months, my favorite jeans wouldn't fit anymore. I bought a larger size, then another and another. Clothes became increasingly baggy, shapeless, designed to hide rather than to cover. I stopped looking in the mirror. I avoided photographs. I declined invitations to go out with friends. First with elaborate excuses, then with silences that turned into permanent distance. Food became my only reliable companion. When I felt lonely, I ate. When I felt anxious, I ate. When I felt happy, in the rare moments when that happened, I ate too, as if I needed to celebrate every little moment of joy before it disappeared. Fast food, whole pizzas, liters of soda, candy in industrial quantities. I ordered everything for delivery, sometimes placing multiple orders on different apps, so the delivery drivers wouldn't know all that food was for just one person. My health deteriorated rapidly. My blood pressure skyrocketed. I developed type 2 diabetes. My joints ached constantly under the excessive weight. Climbing a flight of stairs left me breathless, my heart pounding, and sweat running down my face even on cold days. Sleep became a challenge. Sleep apnea woke me several times a night, leaving me exhausted during the day. My parents tried to help at first. My mother called regularly, her voice thick with concern disguised as casualness. "How are you, honey? Are you eating well? Maybe you should go for a walk. Get some fresh air." My father was more direct, sometimes brutally honest. "Son, you need to take care of yourself. This is going to kill you." But each conversation ended the same way, with me promising changes that never came, and them hanging up the phone in frustration, helplessness. Eventually, even those calls became more rare. I can't blame them. It's exhausting to love someone who is slowly self-destructing and won't accept help. On that particular Tuesday, I had made a decision. I spent the entire morning organizing my documents, writing letters that would never be sent, leaving instructions on what to do with my few possessions. I was planning for the end. It seemed like the only logical way out of the hole I had dug myself into. My bank account was nearly empty, living on a meager income from sporadic freelance work that barely paid the rent. I had no prospects, no future, no hope. It was then that the phone rang. I considered ignoring it. I wasn't expecting any important call. It was probably another charge, another overdue bill, another reminder how I'd failed in every aspect of life. But something made me answer. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the universe intervening at the last possible moment. "Hello?" My voice came out hoarse, unaccustomed to being used. "Thomas?" "Thomas Whitmore." It was a female voice, professional, but with a touch of genuine warmth. "Yes, it's me. My name is Dr. Sarachun. I'm the coordinator of the Metabolic Health Research Institute. I'm calling because you've been nominated to participate in an experimental program we're conducting, a study on long-term health transformation." I frowned in confusion. "I think you got the wrong person. I didn't sign up for any studies." "Actually, you didn't apply," she confirmed. "Your former doctor, Dr. Harrison, suggested your name before he retired. He believed you would be an ideal candidate for our program." Dr. Harrison. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 years, since my last unsuccessful weight loss attempt. He'd been patient, understanding, never judging me even when I showed up for appointments increasingly heavier, increasingly defeated. I don't know. I began my automatic defense against anything that required effort or change. I understand your hesitation, Dr. Chin interrupted gently, but I'd like to at least introduce you to the program before you decide. It's not like traditional diets or programs you've probably tried before. It's something completely different. Can we talk in person? No strings attached. Just a conversation. I should have refused. I should have hung up the phone and gone back to my dark plans. But there was something in his voice, not pity, not judgment, just a genuine offer of possibility. When I asked, surprising myself, "How about tomorrow? At 10 in the morning?" Dr. Chin suggested. "Our institute is downtown, near the municipal park. I can text you the address." I looked around my messy apartment. Piles of empty pizza boxes, scattered plastic bottles, dirty clothes piled high. The thought of going out, of exposing myself to the outside world, filled me with dread. But something bigger was happening inside me, a tiny spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope? Curiosity? Or just my survival instinct fighting against my own surrender? Okay, I agreed, my voice barely above a whisper. After I hung up, I sat in silence for long minutes. What had I just done? Part of me wanted to call back and cancel immediately. But another part, a part buried deep beneath layers of despair and self-destruction, was slightly awake. That night was different. Instead of ordering food as I normally would, I forced myself to prepare something simple in the kitchen. Just scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing elaborate. But the act of cooking for myself, something I hadn't done in months, felt symbolically important. Every movement was difficult. Standing for more than a few minutes made my back ache. Reaching the upper cabinets was nearly impossible. But I managed. I barely slept that night. Anxiety about the next day's meeting kept me awake, my mind wavering between not showing up and forcing myself to go. At 6 in the morning, I gave up trying to sleep. I got up slowly, every joint protesting, and dragged myself to the bathroom. Getting ready to leave was an odyssey. Finding clothes that fit and were minimally clean took almost an hour. Showering was exhausting. Reaching parts of my own body had become a physical challenge. Getting dressed required multiple pauses to catch my breath. By the time I finally finished, it was almost 9 o'clock. The institute was a 40-minute bus ride away. The journey there was tortuous. People on the bus looked at me, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed disdain. I occupied a seat and a half, my body spilling into the space next to me. An elderly woman stood, instead of sitting next to me. Every look was a stab, every whisper a reminder of my condition. I almost got off the bus before my stop. I almost went home. But something kept me in place. Something pushed me forward when it was my turn to get off. The Metabolic Health Research Institute was a modern glass and steel building surrounded by manicured gardens. It felt more like a luxury spa than a medical facility. I entered through the revolving door, which barely accommodated me, and headed to the reception desk. Thomas Whitmore, I informed the receptionist. I have an appointment with Dr. Chun. She smiled warmly, without any trace of the judgment I'd expected. Of course, Mr. Whitmore. The doctor is waiting for you. 3rd floor, room 301. The elevator was spacious. Thank God. I ascended alone, my reflection in the mirrored walls impossible to ignore. There I was, a man who was once athletic, confident, and full of life, now reduced to this unrecognizable version of himself. I quickly looked away. Dr. Sarah Chun was waiting at the door to her office. She was a middle-aged Asian woman with dark hair tied in practical bun, wearing a white lab coat over casual clothes. Her eyes were gentle but piercing, as if she could see through every layer of defense I had built. "Thomas, it's a pleasure to meet you," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, but not crushing. "Please come in. Make yourself comfortable." The room was comfortable, more like an elegant office than a doctor's office. There was a large armchair, clearly designed to accommodate people my size, to which she directed me. I sat down with a sigh of relief. "Thank you for coming," she began, sitting in a chair across from me. "I know it wasn't easy. May I ask why Dr. Harrison suggested my name? I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. She smiled softly. He keeps detailed records of all his patients, even after retirement. When he heard about our study, he immediately thought of you. He said you were one of the most intelligent and determined patients he'd ever had. Just lost. He believed that with the right approach, you could find your way back. I felt a lump in my throat. Did Dr. Harrison still think of me? Did he still believe in me? After all the missed appointments, all the broken promises? Let me explain our program. Dr. Chin continued. It's not a diet. It's not a traditional exercise program. It's a complete reconstruction, physical, mental, and emotional. We work with a very small number of participants at a time, offering 24-hour support, housing at the Institute if needed, and psychological, nutritional, and medical counseling. It's intensive, it's challenging, but the results have been extraordinary. And what's the point of the study? I asked, my skeptical side emerging. We are investigating the interconnection between psychological trauma, eating behavior, and sustainable metabolic change. We believe that severe obesity is rarely just about food. It's about pain. It's about coping mechanisms. It's about untold stories and unhealed wounds. Our approach treats the whole person, not just weight. She went on to explain the details. The program would last 18 months. I would have my own suite at the Institute. I would work with a team of specialists, and I would participate in individual and group therapy sessions. Everything would be provided free of charge in exchange for my participation in the study and my agreement to allow my data to be used for research. I'm not going to lie to you, Thomas, she said, leaning forward slightly. This will be the hardest time of your life. You'll have to confront things you've spent years avoiding. You'll have to rebuild not just your body, but your relationship with food, with yourself, with the world. There will be days when you'll want to give up, but we'll be there every step of the way. I sat in silence, processing it all. It was too much. It was scary. It was exactly what I needed. Can I think about it? I finally asked. Of course, she replied. But Thomas, can I ask you a personal question? I nodded. What were you planning to do yesterday, before I called? The question hit me like a punch in the gut. My first instinct was to deny, to deflect, to lie. But something in Dr. Chen's eyes stopped me. There was no judgment there, only deep understanding. I was planning to end it all. I admitted, my voice breaking. I was organizing my papers, writing goodbye letters. I didn't see the point in continuing anymore. She nodded slowly, as if she already knew. What now? Now? I thought for a moment. Now I'm here. I don't know if that means anything, but I'm here. This means everything, Thomas, she said softly. It means that a part of you still wants to live, still wants to fight. That part may be small now, but we can make it grow. We can rebuild from it. Tears began streaming down my face before I could stop them. I hadn't cried in years. I'd buried my emotions under food and isolation. But now, sitting in this comfortable room with a stranger who somehow saw me, really saw me, the floodgates opened. I don't want to die, I whispered between sobs. I just don't know how to live like this. I don't know how to go on being this person. Then don't be, she replied simply. Become someone new, not by denying who you are, but by integrating all the parts of you, the broken, the wounded, the lost, and building something new and strong from them. I left the Institute 3 hours later with a briefcase full of documents, consent forms, and an admission date. 10 days. 10 days to prepare, to end my old life, to say goodbye to the apartment that had been my prison. Those 10 days were surreal. I began cleaning out the apartment, throwing out years of accumulation, physical and emotional. Every discarded pizza box, every empty bottle removed, was like releasing a piece of the weight I'd been carrying. I contacted my parents for the first time in months. The conversation was difficult, filled with tears on both sides, but we ended up with plans for them to visit me at college after the first month. When I finally checked into the Metabolic Health Research Institute, I was terrified but also strangely hopeful. My suite was simple but comfortable, a large bed, a small living room, and a bathroom. Everything was designed with people like me in mind. The first few days were devoted to assessments. Doctors, nutritionists, physical therapists, psychologists, everyone examined me, measured me, tested me. The numbers were terrifying. My body mass index was in extreme danger zone. My blood sugar levels were dangerously high. My heart was under immense stress. But there was no judgment, just objective data and plans for improvement. Dr. Marcus Webb, the team psychologist, was the one who really began to unearth the roots of my problem. In our initial sessions, he gently guided me through my story, not just about obesity, but everything that led up to it. Tell me about your childhood, he asked in our third session. It was normal. I replied automatically, nothing special. Normal? He repeated, eyebrow raised. Thomas, in my experience, when someone reaches 400 pounds, it's rarely because they had a normal childhood. It doesn't have to be extreme trauma. Sometimes it's little things, subtle patterns that develop over the years. Reluctantly, I began to share. My father was a tough man, a former military man, who valued discipline and strength above all else. Love was conditional in our home, based on achievement, on meeting expectations. My mother was more affectionate, but always through food. When I was sad, she made my favorite meal. When I was successful, we celebrated with a special dinner. Food was love. Food was comfort. Food was reward. And when you lost your job, Dr. Webb asked, how did your parents react? I closed my eyes, remembering. My father said I should have worked harder, should have been indispensable. My mother was worried, but didn't know how to help except by offering food. Come home for dinner. Honey, you love my roast so much. And I would go and eat and temporarily feel better. So food became your primary coping mechanism, he observed. Your solace when you felt inadequate, your reward when you felt lonely, your emotional anesthesia. The sessions with Dr. Webb were exhausting, but liberating. For the first time, I was confronting not just what I ate, but why I ate it. I was unearthing decades of emotional patterns, limiting beliefs, and minor traumas that had accumulated into a mountain of pain. At the same time, the nutrition team was teaching me a new relationship with food. It wasn't about severe restriction or deprivation. It was about nourishment, about understanding what my body needed versus what my mind craved. Each meal was carefully planned, balanced, yet satisfying. Food is not the enemy, explained Maria, my nutritionist. Food is fuel, it is nutrition, and yes, it can also be pleasure. But it shouldn't be your only source of pleasure or solace. We are working to build other sources. The exercise started extremely slowly. For the first few days, just sitting and standing repeatedly for 5 minutes exhausted me. But James, my physical therapist, was patient and encouraging. Every move counts, he said. We're not competing with anyone. We're just being 1% better than yesterday. Weeks turned into months. Progress was slow, but steady. The first 10 pounds disappeared quickly, mostly water weight. Then, the loss stabilized at about 3 to 5 pounds per week. Some plateaus were frustrating, periods where the weight simply wouldn't budge despite my best efforts. But the team reminded me that real transformation isn't linear. The real breakthrough came in the 4th month. In a particularly intense session with Dr. Webb, I finally broke through. I hate myself. I screamed, tears streaming down my face. I hate what I've become. I hate what I've done to myself. I hate that I wasted so many years. Stop, he interrupted firmly. Listen to what you're saying. You're speaking to yourself more cruelly than you would to your worst enemy. Why? Because I deserve it, I replied automatically. Why? For struggling with something difficult? For using the only coping mechanisms you knew? For being human and imperfect? He leaned forward. Thomas, you spent your entire life believing you had to be perfect to deserve love, even your own love. But what if you simply deserve to exist, deserve kindness, deserve care just by being you? That session changed something fundamental in me. I began practicing self-compassion, a foreign concept at first. When I made a mistake, when I had a hard day, instead of punishing myself, I tried to treat myself as I would a dear friend. It was uncomfortable and artificial at first, but gradually it became more natural. In the 6th month, something extraordinary happened. I was taking my morning walk in the Institute's garden. I could now walk for 30 minutes without stopping. When I realized I was smiling genuinely, for no particular reason, just from the feel of the sun on my skin, the cool breeze, the simple act of being alive and moving. I had lost 75 kilos. But more important than the number on the scale, I had reclaimed parts of myself I thought were dead. I began attending group therapy sessions, where I met other program participants. Hearing their stories, their struggles, and realizing I wasn't alone in my pain created a deep connection. We formed a small community of warriors, each fighting our own battles but supporting each other. Sarah, a 45-year-old woman who had weighed 400 pounds, became a close friend. "You know what I realized?" she told me one day over tea in the garden. "We spend so much time hiding from the world that we forget what it's like to be present in it, what it's like to feel things other than shame and hunger." She was right. I was rediscovering feelings I'd forgotten. The satisfaction of completing a tough workout, the joy of preparing a healthy, tasty meal, the pride of being able to tie my own shoes without running out of breath. Small victories that, when added together, created a whole new life. My parents came to visit me in my 8th month. My mother cried when she saw me, tears of joy mixed with relief. My father, usually so reserved, hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm proud of you, son." Words I've been waiting to hear all my life. But it wasn't all easy. There were dark moments, especially during the 10th month. One particularly long plateau made me question everything. For 3 weeks, the weight wouldn't budge. My old mind began whispering familiar poisons. "You're failing again. You'll never make it. Why keep trying?" One particularly difficult night, I walked to the communal kitchen, determined to sabotage all my progress. I opened the refrigerator, staring at the food inside. My hand was outstretched, ready to grab anything, any amount. "Can't you sleep too?" A voice behind me made me jump. It was James, my physical therapist, dressed casually. "Sometimes I work late. I started to lie, but stopped. Honesty had become my new practice. I was about to destroy everything. He nodded, without surprise or judgment. "Can I sit with you?" We closed the refrigerator and sat in the dining area. He didn't try to talk me out of eating. He didn't give me motivational lectures. He just sat with me in the dark, present in my struggle. "You know," he said eventually, "success isn't about never falling down. It's about getting up every time you fall down. You felt the impulse, you recognized it, and before you acted automatically, you paused. That's growth, Thomas. That's real change." That night was a turning point. I realized the journey wasn't about perfection. It was about choices, thousands of small choices, every day. And even when I made a bad choice, there was always another choice coming right after. By month 12, I started thinking about life after program. It was scary. The Institute had become my safe bubble, my sanctuary. How would I function in the real world? Dr. Chun and I discussed a transition plan. "You're not leaving without support," she assured me. "We'll have weekly check-ins, you'll continue therapy, and we'll have a nutrition plan for you to follow. And you can always come back if you need support." In the final months, I began working remotely again, small freelance projects that reconnected me with my professional field. I found my mind sharper than ever. The clarity that came from addressing my physical and mental health extended to all areas of my life. When the day came for my graduation from the program, 18 months after that life-saving phone call, I weighed 215 pounds. I had lost 235 pounds, more than half my body weight. But the numbers were the least significant part of the transformation. The real change was in how I saw myself. I was no longer the man who was ready to give up. I was no longer the man who hid from the world. I was someone who had faced his darkest demons and survived. Someone who had rebuilt not just a body, but an entire life. At the closing ceremony, Dr. Chin asked me to share a few words with new participants just beginning their journeys. I stood in front of that small group, seeing my old reflection in their faces. Fear, hopelessness, but also that tiny spark of hope. 18 months ago, I began, my voice firm. I weighed 450 pounds and was planning to take my own life. Today, I'm not here to tell you it was easy, because it wasn't. I'm not here to promise you'll never struggle, because you will. But I'm here as living proof that change is possible, that no matter how low you've fallen, no matter how long you've lost yourself, there is always a way back. Not back to who you were before, but forward to who you can become. I looked at the team that had guided me through this journey. Dr. Chun, Dr. Webb, Maria, James, all of them. I didn't do this alone. No one can. And that's the most important lesson. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's the bravest form of strength. 3 years later, I'm sitting in my home office, finishing a project for an important client. Through the window, I can see the park where I run every morning. Yes, I run. Not fast, not long distances, but I run. Something that would have been unthinkable on that dark Tuesday, so long ago. I keep a photo on my desk, not of me at my lowest point, but of the day I graduated from the program. Bright eyes, genuine smile, surrounded by the team that saved me and friends I made along the way. I look at it on the hard days, because there are still hard days. The difference is that now I have tools. I have strategies. I have a support network. And most importantly, I have compassion for myself in times of struggle. My weight has stabilized at around 90 kilos. Some days it fluctuates up. Some days it fluctuates down. I've learned that this is normal, that this is life. I don't pursue perfection. I pursue balance, health, presence. I recently started volunteering, speaking at support groups about my experience. Seeing hope spark in someone's eyes when I share my story is one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had. If my pain, my struggle, can help even one person, then every difficult moment was worth it. That phone call changed my life forever. But it wasn't just a phone call. It was my choice to answer. It was my choice to show up for that first meeting. It was my choice every day for 18 months to keep trying even when I wanted to give up. It was my choice to allow myself to be helped, to be vulnerable, to do the hard work of healing. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see scars, physical and emotional, but I also see strength. I see resilience. I see someone who survived, who fought, who overcame. I don't see perfection. I see real, raw humanity, beautiful in its imperfection. I weighed 440 pounds and was ready to give up. Today, I weigh half that and am just beginning to truly live. And if you're reading this, struggle with your own weight, whether physical or emotional, know this. You are not alone. Help is available. Hope is available. Change is possible. Sometimes all you need is to answer that phone call.